Welcome to the NBAV podcast. Welcome back to NBAV, the NBA Avenue podcast, going through last night's results, talking headlines from the NBA games that happened on October 30th. Today is October 31st. The NBA season is in an interesting position because we're only a few games in still. Teams only played about 4 or 5 games each. And you think, well, all the teams got to be fresh. Everyone has to be super energized. It's only the first 5 games of an 82-game season. So you think that all the teams would be energized, but what you're seeing is a lot of the teams, after a nice quick start or a good start, they sort of fall asleep at the wheel. They feel that adrenaline rush kick in at the beginning of the game. They get revved up for it, and then they realize, hey, we're really tired. And that was certainly what happened to the Los Angeles Lakers last night. They started off the game looking super sharp. Austin Reeves is looking good. And suddenly, the Anthony Davis makes 2 really horrible passes. I tweeted out that these were 2 of the worst out-of-nowhere idiotic passes that you'll see back-to-back. So first, LeBron James was running down the court, and Anthony Davis tried to bowling ball-style bowl it through like 3 guys to get to LeBron for some sort of breakaway dunk. That failed. It was a turnover. And then Anthony Davis on the next play tried to throw a touchdown pass to him, and that play didn't work either. So it was like they were trying to have some sort of moment. They were trying to create a moment since LeBron was back in Cleveland with his son, and that did not help them at all. And once they gave up those 2 baskets, which were both Donovan Mitchell bomb 3-pointers, he started off the game super hot, and that didn't even continue. But that didn't matter. The game was already done. The game was done within the first 2 quarters. The Cavaliers went up by about 20 points, and then the Lakers just maintained, and the Cavaliers just maintained. Donovan Mitchell wasn't scoring from that point on. It seemed like he had his come down a little bit as well. So everybody only lasted about 2 quarters in that game, and then the score at the end of 2 quarters, the separation at the end of 2 quarters was the separation that remained for the duration of the second half. And it's disappointing. The Lakers, you want to start off dominant. You got off to a 3-1 start. You wanted to pull that to 4-1 and show that you can hang with teams that have top records. And now you're just going to be part of the gauntlet again. You're still in a good position, going 3-2 in the West. That's positive. That's good. You're still in the top 5 teams there, but you're going to be in there. You're going to be in the gauntlet. You're not going to escape it. If you're 4-1, you're making a bit of a statement. If you're 3-2, well, you're just another team that's in the gauntlet of the West. And when people talk about Anthony Davis and MVP, and this is why Anthony Davis won't be MVP, it's games like this. Not to say that he had a bad stat sheet. He still put up over 20 points and had a lot of rebounds, but if you want to be the MVP, you're going to have to come out and do it every single night. And this wasn't a night where he played well at all. This was a night where he still got his points eventually, but this was not a good Anthony Davis game. And it was a game where he was really the catalyst for when the Lakers started getting trounced by him making silly passes and trying to just not play within what's made him good. What's made him good is when they get the ball in the half court and they set a play and they set their offense and he gets in there or he gets a rebound. Like, that's where he's been great. They've set plays for him. They've had a clear plan of how to use Anthony Davis, and that's when he's been his best in the first 4 games. And then last night he just didn't do that at all, really. And then once they went down by a lot, they're sort of reliant on D'Angelo Russell to try and pull them back, and you're playing the Russell game, which isn't what anyone really wants to see. The game where you expect Russell to go earn you the victory over an undefeated team, not great. So the Cavaliers, we actually called this one right. We said that this one has 5-0 written all over it, and the Cavaliers easily trounced the Lakers 134-110. You also saw the Wizards beat the Hawks for the 2nd straight game, and that's a little surprising. You'd like to think that the Hawks have enough respect for themselves to really put it on the line and go get at least one of the victories from the Wizards. Now, it didn't seem like we had Bogdanovich in that game. And yeah, it looks like he didn't play. I mean, I was watching portions of that game, and it just occurred to me, like, where is Bogdanovich? Like, they need him. they can't really expect to win too many games if Bogdanovich, probably their second best guy, unless you say Jalen Johnson is already their second best player. Bogdanovich, after Trae Young, at this point is probably their second best player, especially after the great showing he had in the Olympics. He's really good. He's a really good player, but without him, and with the defense that the Hawks play, which is the brand of defense called not playing it, they don't play very much defense. They lost their second straight game to the Washington Wizards, and that is pretty upsetting. You had Koulibaly scoring a bunch of points. You had Jordan Poole scoring a bunch of points. And they even did it. It's incredible. They beat you the first night on the back of Kyle Kuzma. And then they play the second night without Kuzma, and they still beat you. So the Hawks tried to start off the season hot as well. What happens to the Hawks? They win their first couple of games, and then they lose 3 in a row. 3 losses in a row for the Atlanta Hawks to lead the NBA currently in biggest losing streak. Right, the Utah Jazz. Sorry, the Utah Jazz lost 4. Then you have the Raptors and the Hawks each losing 3 in a row. So pretty bad stuff there from Atlanta, but they need to get Bogdanovich back if they're going to hope of being a top 6 seed. I don't think they will be. I think that they will be a play-in team again. We said that from the start. Then the 76ers lost to the Pistons. So the Sixers won one of their first 3 games. And then they thought, hey, we got a victory. We can get another victory without Embiid and George. We can sit them again. And they learned very quickly that it doesn't seem like they're going to beat anyone because they played one of the only 0-4 teams in the league, and they lost. And now the Pistons got on the board. So out of the entire league, there's 2 undefeated teams, right? The Cavaliers and the Thunder. And then in terms of defeated teams, there's only the Jazz. So there are only 3 teams that have either won or lost all their games. It doesn't last very long because, like we're seeing, you could have the better team. You could have a competitive team. You wake up on the day, and for whatever reason, the travel, the age of your players, it doesn't work out. You look like the Lakers did last night. They didn't look remotely like the same team that played in the first 4 games of the season because even the game that the Lakers lost to the Suns, they played a really good, tough game. It's just unfortunate that they step into their next one and they don't look even remotely like the same team. So the Lakers for the first 4 games of the season and the Lakers for the 5th game were 2 drastically different teams. And what the 76ers are learning is that, hey, we thought that we might be able to win a couple of games on the back of Tyrese Maxey, and they're seeing sort of what they saw last season, which is that in games that Joel Embiid didn't play, Tyrese Maxey was not able to win very many games for the Sixers. He lost almost all the games that Embiid didn't play, and that continued. And you would think, hey, we're playing the Pistons. As long as we can keep it close, the Pistons don't have anyone who can take them over the finish line. They don't have anyone who can win it for them in the 4th quarter, and they still managed to lose the game. The Pistons didn't do anything crazy. They had a balanced 23 from Ivy, 22 from Cade, 18 from Harris, and 16 from Hardaway Jr. And that's really it. The only other guy scoring double figures was Malik Beasley, but the Sixers only put up 95 points. So the Sixers are learning, hey, we're going to have to play Embiid or George if we want to win any of these games. And I wouldn't say that I'm particularly concerned because I do think that once Embiid steps back into the lineup, they're going to win those games, and the Sixers will be in that play-in scenario, and then they'll fight their way into the playoffs. But you have to have a fully healthy, in-shape Embiid when that comes, and if they get down too many games and they have to try to fight back and play Embiid too much, then they're running the risk of him not being healthy, and if they don't play him, then they don't win. So they're sort of in a lose-lose right now, and they've started off the season very poorly, only winning 1, losing 3. And then you have the Celtics versus the Pacers, and this is why it's so difficult to bet on NBA games early in the season because the Pacers start every game slow. This game, they come out and they start pretty quick. The Celtics go down by a lot of points in the second half, and the Celtics fight all the way back. The game looks like it's done. It's not. The Celtics start hitting their threes, and they come all the way back. Derek White had a big part in that, and then Jason Tatum hits the big 3 to tie up the game and send it to overtime. They have an opportunity to send it to double overtime, but Jaylen Brown this time airballs the three, and you have the Pacers getting a victory. I wouldn't be upset at all if I was a Celtics fan or a Celtics coach. The Celtics did a great job to get that game into overtime and nearly win it. And they showed that they're not going to quit. They're not going to be like the Lakers were last night. There's a different resolve. The Lakers went down big, and they never showed any resolve. They never threatened to come back in the game. The Celtics went down big, and they actually came all the way back, sent it to overtime. They gave themselves a chance to win it. So what you're seeing is that even on the nights that the Celtics don't win, they really play hard, and they're a tough out every single night. So the Celtics, if you want to break the season into breaks of five games at a time, see how you do, the Celtics are exactly where you would expect. They win approximately 80% of their games. After 5 games, they're 4-1. They've won 80% of their games. So the Celtics are exactly where they need to be. They're 4-1, and in the one game that they lost, it was a overtime loss where they had a big comeback. So you've got to be thrilled if you're a Celtics fan. Championship, your team looks really good, going for number 2. They're going to easily be the one, or worst case, the 2 seed, probably the one when it's all said and done. And they're going to have a great opportunity to run it in the East for the second straight year. Then you have the Hornets beating the Raptors, which we also said was likely the case with Scottie Barnes being out. Now, if you watch this game, you're probably one of the few who did. You're probably either from Toronto or from Charlotte. And other than that, I don't imagine very many people watched it, but good on the Hornets for winning a game where Scottie Barnes wasn't there. At least they capitalized and got the victory. At least LaMelo Ball is on the court. Right, you gotta small victories if you're a Hornets fan. Then you had a great game. It was the Knicks against the Heat. The two teams played each other real tough. Knicks pulled ahead at the end, and they went up by several points, and the Heat weren't able to muster that last run to get it into a one-possession game at the end, especially because Karl-Anthony Towns was just absolutely ridiculous. I don't think there's a single Knicks fan watching what Karl-Anthony Towns has done so far in this season and wishes they had Julius Randle back. Everyone is thrilled that Randle's out of here. And for some reason, there was a massive uprising contingent of Knicks fans who were saying that Julius Randle is really good and we don't want to trade him and this and that. And then, the second he's gone, all of that disappeared. It was fully concocted by Knicks fans to try and be like, oh, don't be haters against Julius Randle. And it's like, no, Julius Randle never really fit on the team. He's gone. He's not played particularly well. If you look at all the games that Minnesota's played, he had maybe one good game, and that'll be sort of the case for him. He'll have a good game every now and then, but you can't really trust him with the game on the line or in big games. And conversely, Karl-Anthony Towns has been absolutely ridiculous. He's been super efficient. He's played well. Yeah, he fouls a lot, and he has to work on the defense a little bit, but compared to Randle, I mean, you just got to be thrilled that the Knicks have him. The Knicks ended up, if you want to look at things for the Knicks right now, they lost Hartenstein to the Thunder. Hartenstein hasn't played a game yet. He's injured. You got Karl-Anthony Towns to fill that spot, and if you wouldn't have had Karl-Anthony Towns, you would have no center because Precious Achiuwa was also hurt. So it was really a stroke of genius based on the circumstances that they got Karl-Anthony Towns. And now the Knicks are looking a little bit more like the Knicks. They get a good victory against another tough Eastern Conference team who's healthy right now, with a healthy Jimmy Butler, with a healthy Tyler Hero, with a healthy Terry Rozier, and you got the victory. So great job by the New York Knicks on the road to even things back up on their season and show that, hey, we lost the first 2, but now we're back at 500. We're in there. We're in this. We're going to work. We're going to build. Then you have a really surprising one where the Grizzlies, with Ja in the lineup, lose a game to the Nets. And every episode of this podcast, we get on here and we say the Nets are playing well right now. Don't count the Nets out. But we didn't expect the Nets to win by 13 against the Grizzlies. And I don't think you have to really do too much analysis on this game to look at what the problem is. And if you see a game where Dennis Schroeder puts up 33 and 8 assists, and he wins the point guard matchup against Ja, who only puts up 14 and 11, you have Schroeder scoring more than double the points of Ja You can't have that and expect to win the game if you're losing the point guard battle like that. So Ja Morant has to get it going. He can't have such a pathetic showing, especially on his home court against a team like Brooklyn. Granted, they're playing well right now, but you shouldn't be getting beat like that in the one-on-one matchup by Dennis Schroeder. That's not a good sign for Grizzlies fans. Then you have the Magic losing a game against Chicago. We didn't see this one coming. And the Chicago Bulls managed to pull off the victory. At the end of that game, Orlando had one play where Paolo Banchero drew the foul, and the refs did not call it. So unfortunate for him. And then at the end of the game, they have a chance to tie it and take the lead and send this to overtime. And Jalen Suggs is trying to take the last shot. He gets the ball. He doesn't try to immediately pass it to Banchero, and he nearly throws it away. Then he gets the ball again doesn't pass to Banchero immediately, and then he has, with the time running down, he's forced to take a tough shot and doesn't score it. You've got to just put the ball in Banchero's hands. It's not even a question, because who's the guy who can get the shot off? Banchero. He's the most talented in terms of getting himself a shot, in terms of his size, and in terms of his turnaround shooting ability, which he showed in the playoffs. He can get a shot off any time, and you want the ball in his hands. Also, he's a very clutch player, which he was showing in the game. So the fact that you didn't get the ball in his hands, the same thing like when the Spurs were playing the Rockets 2 nights ago, and we said, hey, you got to get the ball into Wemby's hands, and instead of Keldon Johnson, same thing here. You got to put the ball into the hands of their biggest threat. And if the defense gets pulled in, and Suggs is wide open for a three, sure. If the defense gets pulled in and Anthony Black is wide open for three, sure, no problem. But you can't abandon going to your best player, who's a clutch player, who's a big guy who can turn around and get the shot anytime. You can't go away from him at the end of the ball game, and you end up blowing a game against the Chicago Bulls that you really could have won. You have the Thunder beating the Spurs. No real surprise there. The Thunder, one of the 2 undefeated teams, the 1 undefeated team in the West. And they've done it all without Isaiah Hartenstein thus far. You have the Warriors, and this is unbelievable. The Golden State Warriors just showed the New Orleans Pelicans that they wanted these victories. They won because they wanted to win. And you got to give so much credit to Draymond for leading them. And it's not that Draymond Green had the most incredible stat sheet. It was 14 points, 6 assists, 4 rebounds, but he leads them. He sets the defense. He is full communication. And then you got the 21 from Buddy Hield. He wasn't as efficient as he was the previous night, where he scored the 29 or 28 in 29 minutes. This time he scored 21 points in 29 minutes, but you had 16 from Kuminga, you had 10 from Anderson, you had Podziemski with a well-rounded 38 minutes of 13, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists, and Trayce Jackson-Davis also putting up 15. Lindy Waters wasn't the factor that he was the previous night, and still they win the game. Lindy Waters in 30 minutes only scored 3 points, and the Warriors still win the game on the back of the Pelicans only scoring 89 points. The Warriors just wanted it more. They tried harder, and they wanted the victory. It wasn't enough that they went and beat New Orleans once without Steph Curry. They went and beat them twice without Steph Curry. For Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram to each play over 30 minutes and only score 12 and 14 points, that's not going to get it done. Where are your big-time players? Okay, you played without McCollum. Okay, sure, DeJounte Murray is injured. You still have Williamson. You still have Ingram. Sure, the bench isn't as deep as you want. Sure, you don't have Trey Murphy out there last night. Okay, I mean, I understand it. There are a lot of injuries early on in the year for them. They were sitting a lot of guys. Herb Jones wasn't out there. But the Warriors are missing Steph Curry. The Warriors are missing Andrew Wiggins. And they're fighting like hell for this game. So why aren't you? The Pelicans are a team that if they fall behind, they're never going to recover. This Pelicans team isn't a team that's going to win 5 in a row. And in this Western Conference, if they fall behind, they're never going to recover. They need to turn it on and turn it on quick. Whereas the Warriors, they got that Steph Curry injury. They lost their first ball game. They went 2-1, and what did they do? They win the next 2 without him. Incredible resolve. Incredible job by the Warriors. I can't say enough about the way these young players wanted to play, and with the leadership and help from Draymond. I can't say enough about it. They end up getting the 4-1 start that they had their eyes on with the easy schedule to start. And if you look at the Warriors' next few games, they're going to be playing the Rockets and the Wizards. So they have a chance to still win at least one or both of those games before they then hit the really tough part of their schedule where they're going to be playing the Celtics, followed by the Cavaliers, followed by the Thunder, followed by the Mavericks. And those are that's as tough a 4-game stretch as you're going to see. You're playing the 2 best teams in the NBA in terms of roster in the Celtics and the Thunder. You're playing the best team in the NBA in terms of record in the Cavaliers. And then you're playing the defending conference champions in the Mavericks. And that's a 4-game stretch that you can go 0-4 in that stretch. So the Warriors are 4-1. They have 2 winnable games against the Rockets and the Wizards. You'd like to see them get to 5-2 or 6-1 before they go into that really, really, really tough 4-game stretch. But the Warriors, for now, they're giving themselves the cushion that they need because they're another team. If they don't have the cushion, they're not going to get it. They're not going to make it to a top 6 or 7 seed in the Western Conference. And then you have the Trailblazers beating the Clippers. The Clippers they got up for games against bigger teams, and then they didn't get up for the game against the smaller team, and they end up losing a close one. The Blazers winning 106-105, and you're seeing that, look, it's early in the year. These games are hard to predict. Teams haven't fallen into habits yet. Really, the only team that's been a given for a loss has been Utah. And even they are a team, they're going to go on a streak at some point. Utah's going to win a couple games in a row at some point. It's just a matter of when, because they don't have such a bad franchise. And, hey, look, the more games they lose, the more eyes will shift to them in terms of who's going to be traded off that team, because that team has a lot of players. Utah has some real players on that team that everyone would want. You don't have to look much past Markkanen. Walker Kessler has had his name in a million trades. You have Jordan Clarkson, the 6-man. So you have Colin Sexton, who would be a welcome addition to any team in this league. You have 4 guys right there who are massive trade bait. And if they can't win a game, sooner or later, teams are going to want those guys. And maybe one of the teams that's going to look to make a trade is a team that's playing tonight, the Milwaukee Bucks. They're playing against the Grizzlies, and neither of these teams are playing very well right now. Milwaukee turned in a decent performance in their last one against the Celtics, but ultimately they did not come up with the victory, and they're inconsistent. They had a night off. How are they going to look against the Grizzlies? Grizzlies on the second night of a back-to-back. They're at home again, but they played last night. They got beat pretty easily by the Brooklyn Nets, so this is a tough one to predict. You'd like to think the Grizzlies are going to come out with some urgency, but the Bucks are desperate, real desperate, and they had a night of rest. So I think you're going to have to look for a close one, narrow victory for Milwaukee here. That's the way I see this one going. Then you'll have the Rockets going against the Dallas Mavericks. The Mavericks are heating up. They're dangerous. They didn't start off slow. They're at home. So let's see. Luka got it going at the end of that last game. I think Dallas is coming on here. I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas gets this victory. Then you'll have San Antonio going against Utah. One of these teams has to win this game. I wouldn't bet on it. I wouldn't pay attention to it, but Spurs against the Jazz will be on for anyone who's interested. And then you have the Suns against the Clippers. The Suns have to win this one because they played a great game against the Lakers. They fought, and they got the victory. And then they had 2 nights off. 2 nights off. They had plenty of rest. And they didn't have to travel very far, right? The Suns were home against the Lakers, and all they got to do now is go to California and play against the Clippers. The Suns are rested, and they're getting the Clippers on the second night of a back-to-back. The Suns have got to win this ball game. They've got to. They have got to win this. This one is tailor-made. It's served up to them on a silver platter. They've just got to come out and execute on the backs of Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. They do that, they'll easily get the win. They'll move to 4-1, and they'll be tied for the 2 seed in the Western Conference. As always, we're your source for a great time every time. And until next time, we are out.